So, was there a moment that you felt spiritually carried?
Um, Always. I mean, now that I know, now that I understand it more, I mean, to me, being spiritually carried, um, that that can mean a lot of things. I mean, there's unexplainable things that happen, I call them spiritual gifts. I was in a relationship that wasn't very fun, especially towards the end, and you know, I felt trapped. Um, and I honestly didn't know what I was gonna do, and then all of a sudden I get this big gift from the universe. It's because in that relationship, it was a physically abusive relationship. But then I got really sick, and I don't know, it was very scary. But at that point I was like, okay, universe, I surrender. Because I can't fight anymore. Fighting is exhausting. And so it's like, okay, well, I have nothing left, to fight, I have no fight left. So I'm like, okay, and I'm praying, I'm like, hey, show me what direction I'm meant to go in that's going to keep, get me where I need to be and be safe. And I get this check in the mail for $8,000. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, what do I do with this? But that was a whole new journey for me. That was a way out of that relationship and being able to become more independent again and, start my journey of independence and, getting into that safety zone again and well, not even again, but for the first time in my life. So, but yeah, that was one, but feeling spiritually, you know, guided, lifted, every um, unexplainable experience, gift to me is being divinely lifted and carried.
Yeah, for sure.
Mhm.
Yeah, $8,000, most definitely.
Yeah, I mean, because it led to so many more open doors, and I think that's really important for people to understand as well, is realizing that, um, open doors, when one thing that I do want to say about forgiveness, okay? Because when it came to the weight loss, one huge thing has been forgiveness. I look at the traumas that I've experienced, and not only is it about releasing the attachment to it, but forgiveness, forgiving that person. And it's not even about forgiving that person, it's forgiving, the experience. Because, well, one thing that I have to remind myself is that was an experience for that person, that it doesn't define who they are. I don't want somebody to define who I am for, things that I've experiences that I've done, you know. But it's the same thing, when I look at other people, other experiences that they're having. It's like, I have to learn, okay, well, yes, I had this experience with them and it tore me apart. It, affected my life in a major way. But, you know, if I continue to hold on to that anger and to that hurt and to that experience, then I'm not going to want a relationship with that person, you know, or it, and once I don't want that relationship with that person might hold opportunities, and so it's like, and it doesn't even have to be connected to that person, just from the forgiveness part, being able to forgive them. Once I forgive that person, then, or not that person, but you know, that scenario, then that frees you up. And then you get to know, a new opportunity, a new experience, and it just keeps going from there. That's how, at least that's how it works for me. And so through my healing, when I learn to forgive them, the experience, and forgive myself for not knowing, you know, anything different. It does make a big difference for me. It's, it's very powerful because you basically are standing in your power, taking your power back.
That is true. That's an excellent point because forgiveness is sticky.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Oh,
very, very sticky.
yes.
And sometimes we think that we've forgiven and we take it back, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or we're at a loss of how do I even? How do
Mm-hmm.
I even?
Mm-hmm.
And so definitely a surrender there, um, a surrender into the bigger picture, a surrender into realization that we wouldn't be who we are today without the experiences that we have. So again, how can we continue to move the needle forward rather than
Mm-hmm.
down spiral into the victim,
Right.
right?
Right. Well, and you're right. I mean, forgiveness, it does take a lot of courage to forgive, especially when there's really strong emotions involved in it. Some people will wrap a whole identity around it. I know I did. I
Yeah.
wrapped several identities around, the traumas that I experienced, and now I don't have to, I don't have to. And now I can carry myself in a more sophisticated, more, uplifting way because I don't have that holding me down anymore. I don't have that feeling of not being worthy enough or, feeling like I'm just a piece of meat or just, whatever the case may be, and so now I walk in stride. I hold my head high and, you know, I I flow, you know, because it's being present. It's beautiful.
Oh, it's so true. I think that when we can really stay in the present moment,
Mhm.
forgiveness, there's more of an opportunity there
Yeah,
for forgiving
for sure.
than if we're stuck in the story, stuck in the past. Um, yeah,
I mean, and there's so much that comes with that. I mean, just there's so much that floods in my mind right now, just in my own personal life with you saying that, because I mean, we can forgive, and some people will say, well, what about the other person? What if they're not ready? They don't have to be. It's not about them. It's about you. If they're not ready for where we're at, for where you're at, that's okay. You still honor your space, you honor their space, and that's where we take time for ourselves and say, okay, well, I see where you are and I see where I am, and we're good. We don't judge. We're just like, okay, I see you and that's okay. I see me just as much.
for sure.
Mhm.
Such a big picture.
It is. It's huge.
Yeah. So what does the subconscious know that willpower never could?
Oh, subconscious and willpower. Um, with that one, your subconscious is going to be you know, where everything is stored. And your willpower is always it's going to be basically like, your coaching you on. It's not going to be the one who says, okay, stop and think, that's your subconscious. Your subconscious is the one that's, basically running the show. It's the one that holds the memories. It's the one that holds everything. And so your subconscious, yes, we have to have both of them, but it's learning the balance between the both of them.
And do you believe that the body speaks before the mind is ready to listen?
Absolutely. Absolutely. 100%. And, again, that's, the whole sensory thing, our bodies, they tell us so many things as long as we listen, and that's one thing that I've learned, why I've learned to really tune into my body is because I'm like, okay, where can I honor myself today? And if I'm not feeling well, listen to that space, honor that space and say, okay, what's going on? And, you know, of course, think that space, think that body part or whatever, because it works hard. Our bodies work hard. And we think other people in conversations, we think, all kinds of things. But one thing that a lot of us don't do is we don't think our body. We don't think our eyes. We don't think our heart or our knees or our skin, but all of it, like all of it, I'm grateful. And the more that we think that and honor that space, and it shows that much more love and just more abundance.
So true. I've often thought of the body as just a suit that we put on, right?
Mm-hmm.
This meat suit that we put on over the brain. And then the brain's saying, we're going to do this, we're going to go here, we're going to do this, we got to do this. And it's like, why am I so tired? Why am I so hungry? Why is all the things?
Right.
And and then when I found out that the body is always in the present moment. The
Always.
mind can be in the past, the mind can be in the present, and the mind
Mm-hmm.
can be in the future. But the
Yes.
body is only in the present moment,
Yes.
always.
Always.
And it's like, oh my goodness. And just you talking about gratitude.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How often do we say thank you
Right.
to these cells in this body, this suit that
Yes.
we're wearing?
Right.
Rarely.
Right.
Rarely. Most of the
Mm-hmm.
time, we're tearing it apart, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Why this? Why that? Da da da.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, see, and that's when, like through with the hypnosis and also Reiki, um, that's why, I'll do the body scans and talk to the body parts and even, doing a hypnosis session. Once we access the subconscious, it's also we're doing the body scan, finding out, what's being held, what's ready to let go, what's ready to be healed, what's ready to be removed. And, you're always honoring that space and thanking it, because yeah, it's helped get you this far,
Yeah.
moving the needle forward. It's
Yeah.
gratitude is huge.
Well, and your intake is so thorough. And you even before you start the session, you really welcome your client to look through questions. And there are a lot of questions that we have about our body.
Mm-hmm.
And so that can be worked right into the session.
Yes.
All of those things can be worked right into the session.
Mm-hmm.
It was such an amazing experience.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, extremely amazing experience.
I loved it was so much fun. I enjoyed our session that day, and yeah, you were amazing to work with as well.
Oh, thank you.
So yeah, it's whenever we realize just how much it all combines together, because even doing, language of the body, learning and studying, it all makes sense. And it's crazy because I mean, and not crazy, 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 but I love how to learn, that things are so simple, but we make them so hard. So hard. And it's like when I'm, studying and I'm reading about these things and rediscovering all these things, I'm just like, why do we make things so hard on ourselves? And then it's like when you realize how simple it is, you're like, are you for real?
Oh, yeah.
Like,
Oh,
how
yeah.
did I not know this?
Yes. I had a coaching session yesterday, and I was coaching someone else. And the realization that had come, I mean, it helped me. It was her realization, but I was like, oh my gosh, this has
Hmm.
helped me.
Right.
And you just never know when that's going to come.
I agree. I mean, and that's one of the beautiful things about, for me, as a practitioner is, I look at any experience that comes, into my awareness is a mirror. So if there's something, well, it doesn't matter what it is, if it's something meant for me to pay attention to, I know it's going to be right there, because that's the intention I set for myself. And so, with this, it's no exception, the mirroring and being able to see people have those epiphanies. Yes, they're uplifting to us as, a coach or a practitioner. Because I mean, when my clients come and they feel so heavy and bogged down, you can just, they've got this gray cloud. I'm like, oh, come on, baby. Let's work through this because, I don't like feeling that way, and so when I see others, I'm like, hey, come on, come let all this stuff go, let's start breaking all this stuff away. And then once you just literally hold that space for them and be, in that awareness and be present with them when they start working through that stuff and they just have epiphany after you just watch their spirit like just start uplifting and you're like, yes,
Oh,
good
yeah.
job.
It's almost like you look like a different person right now after it's done, right?
For sure.
It's like,
Absolutely.
and even when I look at myself in the mirror sometimes, I'm like, oh my gosh, I am a different person right now.
Absolutely.
And
You know.
it really is beautiful and it really is worth the effort
Hmm.
to participate in our life
Yes.
and find the ways that we can participate in life rather than just saying things like, well, it's never going to change, or that's always how it's been, and
Yes.
whatever, whatever.
Yes.
But when we actually fully start to participate in our life,
Hmm.
then it's like, oh, there's an uncovering that
Yes.
happens. It's beautiful.
And unveiling.
Unveiling. Yes. Yes. And clarity.
Oh, yeah,
So much clarity.
so much.
And I think that even with my session going back to, like I don't know what you thought during the session, but I just remember you like, I don't know what happened here. Like nothing really happened. And I was like, oh no, there was clarity. I had clarity of, I cannot do that anymore. I
Hmm.
cannot sit on the sidelines and for my whole life. I can't do it.
Hmm.
I have to start dipping my toe in the water. I have to start creating that momentum. And is it going to mean failure? Sure. Yeah. But if we don't have failure, we're not trying, right?
Right.
And we're not showing up if we don't have failure. And
Right.
failure's kind of been a big lie. It's right? Like we're
Hmm.
meant to go through these trial and error. And how
Hmm.
many times did it take for the light bulb to get created? Lots and
Right.
lots and lots of prototypes, right?
Right.
All those things. And to give ourselves that grace that,
Hmm.
it's okay. And also to not give up on ourselves, to
Right.
keep to push through, keep going.
For sure. And you just gave me some relief right now, with what you just said, because it's true. I mean, when you talk about grace, we're so hard on ourselves. We can be so hard on ourselves. You know, um, I don't I don't see it so much, in myself, but recognize it when I do it as much. I don't know. I guess I shouldn't say that. I notice that I don't do it as often, but when, I'm around other people, whether it be networking or whatever, having a conversation, you know, I'll, I'll, I'll hear just the words, of, how people, I don't know. I don't want to say feel about themselves, but where their vibration is, where their frequency is. And, I'm just like, oh, come on, we got to breathe through this and move through this. And, you know, um, but that's one thing that I encourage people, the most is always give yourself ease and grace because when we do, it not only is uplifting, but it's also empowering, because we're not taken away from ourselves. And that's another thing is words. words are so important, so important. Growing up, we said I love you a lot in our household, which I love that. Some households I've seen people say, I hate you, you're stupid, you're ugly, and that's their love language. And I'm like, ooh, I personally couldn't do that. You can still see like love interaction with them, but still the words, to me are so low vibrational. And so one of the biggest parts of my transformation is learning, more about words and using more uplifting words in higher frequency because it's huge. The more we're uplifting, it's not just uplifting for ourselves, it's, for those around us. And the more we know that when we uplift inside, it attracts outside,
Oh yeah.
so words, very, very powerful. It goes back to the patterns and the belief systems. And, if you tell yourself I'm a piece of trash so many times, you're going to believe it. If you tell yourself I'm fat, you're going to believe it. I mean, it's all about mindset and words. So powerful.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it takes me back to the conversation that we had when we met for coffee.
Mm-hmm.
And they were just these words that I was using.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's a gift. Like you totally have a gift where you're probably cringing inside, like, oh no, what is she saying? What's going on here? And you just so gracefully um, you know, approach the words and just the things that you said. And when I left, I had all of these universal signs happening. I was snapping pictures at license plates and I was driving down, there was a vehicle that I was taking pictures of, and it was just like, oh my gosh, like something shifted.
Mm-hmm.
Something shifted with this conversation.
I love that.
Yeah, it was such a gift.
I love that. Thank you. Yeah, um when you say cringe, when I listen to conversations, it's more about listening with compassion and understanding, because again, it comes to not judging. Because I look at, things that I've experienced in my life and actions that I've chosen. And, those were experiences that I've learned from. But again, you know, um, it's about grace, compassion. I don't judge people. Like I really keep an open mind and try to keep as much purity as I can because judgment, it's not my place to hold judgment. And so when people speak, I'm just like, it's like a flow to me. It's ease, and it's like, okay, I want them to feel the uplifting version of where they're at. It's like, okay, just a little bit higher.
Yeah, you just welcome them in. It
Yes.
really is. You're moving your body in this circular motion, and it just reminds me of the spiral, right? And it's just
Hmm.
like, oh yeah, just come on in here, and we're just going to spiral you right on up
Hmm.
into this.
Yes.
So in sessions, what surprises women most about their own inner wisdom? Because in a session, if you've never had a session, you have no idea what to expect.
Hmm.
I had no idea what to expect. And it was like, whoa, there are these surprises that come. And you've worked with a lot of people, so I'm curious.
So the biggest thing is them discovering that they've had the answers the whole time, and that it literally just takes holding that space and having somebody to help open that, just be able to open that space up and be able to feel safe and confident in who they truly are, and so it's the biggest thing is knowing that they hold the answers, It's just being able to access them and yeah, strengthen that muscle.
And I do have to attest to that because when I realized that I was living out my victim mentality throughout my session,
Mhm.
it was like, wow, over and over and over again. This was just a message that my body was saying, you better get this. Like, here's your opportunity to really see this and shift. So yeah, when we find the answers within ourselves, I feel that it's easier to step into change. It's
Yes.
not somebody telling you like, oh, well, you know, you're just waiting around wishing that something were different. That's
Mhm.
different than you having an experience and
Right.
realizing this is holding me back.
Right. Well, and like with your session, oh, you mentioned about being, all over. I don't remember so much as that part. More of you had a lot of epiphanies. Like there was just so much breakthrough, so many deep ancestral breakthroughs that it was like I was very empowered from your session, because I mean, it did help me see things in my own version of my life, that helped me, guide through that. But you had some very huge milestones that you worked through in that session. And so it was incredible, for me to be able to have that experience with you. There was some emotional parts that I was kind of like, yeah, she's, I felt like, um, you were diving as deep as you were allowing, like deeper than you had ever allowed yourself to before. And that was huge for you. Even we discussed that, that how big and how empowering that was because it was something that you didn't realize you were ready to really dive into, but you did amazing. You did amazing.
Yeah, and I think too, if I remember, um, I didn't cry.
No, and
And
I
I
was
remember
actually
you saying,
surprised.
yeah, like a lot of people cry, different things, and
Mhm,
but I didn't cry. And but I had been on a quest. I have had so many experiences
mhm.
that have really shaken me to the core.
Right.
Some really big experiences. And I got to a point where I just had to hold it together. I had to hold it together. I had to be the strong
Mhm,
one. So my mind is creating this fortress around my really probably protecting me emotionally
mhm,
because my nervous system probably couldn't have handled it at
mhm.
that time. And I just stepped into the masculine, into this strength, the anchor, like talk about heavy, right? The
Right.
anchor.
Mhm,
And I've learned to cry since then.
mhm,
It's still, I was crying a little bit earlier today, like,
mhm,
things that you were saying. I was like, oh my gosh, just very, very emotional.
mhm.
And but yeah, there are things that sometimes I didn't realize that not crying really is not being vulnerable.
Right.
And I never thought of that before.
Mhm. Well, and with your session, there was a part that got pretty emotional. And I feel like that's probably like it was a very deep, very sensitive subject. And so I think that's kind of why I was surprised that you didn't cry because you were like you were very vulnerable. You were very sensitive. And it was a very I vaguely remember, the parts of it. And so that was pulling on my heartstrings alone. And I'm just like, oh my goodness, but yes, you can see that just through that part alone, how much you've had to step into your survival mode and your masculinity is, to hold that everything in and hold it together in order to get through it. So, but you did like the breakthroughs, like just us touching on that subject and us being able to work what we did through, like, bravo, you
It
did
was
great.
life-changing. Honestly, it was life-changing. It's something that I would really recommend to everyone to see yourself in a different way
Mhm.
and to experience things that you just don't know that are there. You
Mm-hmm.
really just don't know that they're there. And so, yeah, yeah,
It's
but
true.
definitely a springboard in a lot of areas that I can just trace back to that session. I
Well,
need to
didn't,
listen to it again because
oh,
I
that
haven't
was,
recorded. Yeah, you do record the sessions.
yes, I do audio record them. I am starting to consider, doing the video recordings for those who want them. But yeah, I do record them. And like with you and your session, um, yeah, there was a lot of breakthroughs and just yeah, there's like certain parts that keep coming up and I'm like, okay, okay. So yeah, when you're ready, like they're ready.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I'm getting ready.
Mhm.
I'm getting ready. So I wanted to ask you for the woman who feels trapped in her body, either physically or spiritually,
Mhm.
where would you gently invite her to begin? Maybe it's this, I don't know, right? We just kind of pumped this up. This might be it. I don't know.
Um, my biggest, advice would be, forgiveness.
Yeah.
Forgiveness is always going to be, in my mind's eye, is the biggest change, because once you start to be able to do that, it opens up so many different opportunities and, just in different ways. It's not even just about your own like inner wellness. It's all around you. It's everything, in your universe. It's not about anybody else. It's your universe. And so once you start with that forgiveness, like you start to see all these different walls that you've had up start to crumble down. And the more they crumble, the more light starts to shine in, and then there's, more opportunities, and it just keeps getting better and better from there, but we have to be able to release those anchors and step into our power and, just stay as present as we can, have our forgiveness and unconditional love, because being, anything else than that, when I look
That's
back,
the
I'm just
best.
like, "Oh, that's
Yeah.
scary."
Oh, I know. But it's the best. And that was one of the things that you told me was when you're holding that in, when you're not in forgiveness, there's a door that's closed.
Yep.
And all of our doors, all of our windows, even our heart,
Mm-hmm.
there's a giving and a receiving, even
Yeah.
with our throat and our ears, right? There's a giving and a receiving.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're blocking these things and closing these things through not being in forgiveness,
Mm-hmm.
it blocks everything. It doesn't
Yeah,
just block the bad, but it blocks the good too.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's, one thing that I remind myself, boundaries are great. Boundaries are wonderful. Walls, it goes both ways. It
Whole
keeps
different
good,
story.
good
Mhm.
and bad in and out,
Yeah.
it's like, where do you want to be? This is where, we get to make our decisions. This is where, our our willpower comes in, our strength comes in, but also listening to our guidance, I mean, it all works together, like a hand in glove. It's just learning, relearning, because we already have it in us. It's just breaking down those old belief patterns and, you know, reconnecting back to who we truly are.
Well, and Rebecca, I'd love to hear your definition of a nice strong boundary and a wall. Like, what is the difference between that?
Oh. I used to ask myself the same thing. I'm like, how do you set a boundary from a wall, So for me, boundaries is letting people know, because we teach people how to treat us. If we don't set up boundaries and say, okay, you know what? I'm not okay with this, and we just allow it, then, what intentions are we setting for ourselves? You know, um, yeah. So boundaries is letting people know, this is what I'm okay with and this is what I'm not. You know, walls, you're just going to block everybody out. If somebody upset me, in the past, I'm like, well, I'm blocking that person. I don't want them calling me. I don't want nothing to do with them. And then it's, going back into my old belief systems of judging and all these different things. And I'm like, so that's the old version of me. So now it's like, okay, I see you and I know where I'm at. And these are my boundaries. We're either going to meet each other in the middle or, not. But that doesn't, I'm not going to disconnect from that person to the point that, I'm not going to not allow them in. But there's definitely boundaries. There's definitely going to be, you know, um, let them know where I'm at, and if that's to me, that also comes down to, the whole energy thing, where we discipline ourselves, that's going to be what we attract as well. Does
I
that
think
make
that's good
sense?
too. It does. That totally makes sense. And one thing I learned, um, I think it was probably, I don't even remember who it was that I was listening to, but it was one of those things where if you find yourself in the position of maybe you're reliving a story and you're putting out those thoughts to that person, or even if you see that person you're like, ah, you just
Mm-hmm.
ruined my day, or whatever you're thinking, and
Right.
you catch yourself in that,
Mm-hmm.
is to then release in love and say, okay, I had my little fit,
Mm-hmm.
but now I send you love.
Right.
And there's a softening that starts to happen because those walls, they that's why I didn't cry. That was a
Mm-hmm.
wall. That was a heart wall, honestly, is what it was. It was a heart wall.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had to learn to soften that, be vulnerable, and know that my reaction is mine. Has
Mm-hmm.
nothing to do with them.
Right.
Nothing to do with them.
Mm-hmm. Well, and we all have our own perception, and that's, when we have our storyline, we have, this is how it is, you
Yeah.
know, and that person sees the same story, but in their own version, and then it's like, okay, but yes.
Yeah, not too long ago, I there was a story that I had carried for many, many years. And
Hmm.
I would tell everybody this story, I'd tell everybody this story. And then there was sorry about that. I thought I had my phone on Do Not Disturb. We'll just change that really quick. And so literally I was telling my husband the story. And as the words are coming out, I recognized a little part that was my fault,
Hmm.
to where I thought, oh my gosh, here I had this whole big story about this other person. But if I had handled it a little bit differently,
Hmm.
that whole story wouldn't have happened. It would have been a completely different way. Talk
Right.
about humbling, right? You
Hmm.
just kind of go, oh my
Hmm.
gosh. I
Hmm.
can't believe I didn't see that before.
Yep. Well, and that's where looping comes in. Sometimes looping, I'm like, okay, I don't want to do this anymore.
Yes.
But then there's looping that comes in, that's like, oh, okay, so yes, there's different frequencies of the looping, I guess is what I mean to say. But yes,
Yeah,
I
for sure.
I love the looping whenever it's like, in that case.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah,
I think so too. And when we can really stop and hear what it is that we're saying,
yes,
and ask, what is this about? What is going on? What's really going on? But
right,
that takes pause.
yes,
It takes intention.
hmm,
It takes vulnerability
yes,
and a desire to want to know more.
hmm, for sure.
Yeah.
And that's it. I mean, once you put that intention in there and, you know, you have get in touch with your inner child and your creativity, and say what it is that I want for myself. Our minds are very powerful. Our bodies are powerful. Our bodies can heal, on its own, and our minds heal as well. And it's like the more that we have the unveiling, and the more that we tap into ourselves and take that time, to pause and listen to our bodies, honor where we are in our journeys, it makes a big difference.
For sure.
Mhm.
Well, I have one last question for you.
Okay.
When you sit quietly with yourself now,
hmm
what feels different?
What feels different now is I've finally started to like, this is me. This is me. The older version. I mean, yes, it's, an older version of me, of course, but this is authentically me. Like, this is the version that I was meant to be. I'm not living in a world of people pleasing anymore. I'm not living in a world of, you know, abuse, physical abuse, mental abuse, sexual abuse, drug abuse, alcohol abuse, like, all of those things. I know that they can be a reality if I want them to be, but I've already experienced it. And I know what I want for myself and what I don't want for myself. And so, yeah, I've learned to tap into the authentic, true Rebecca. And I love that person. I love this version. The little girl that didn't have the love and affection, attention that she needed all those years ago, I get to spend time with her now.
Yeah,
And that to me is very precious. I love it. It's being able to be my own best friend. It's not worrying about fitting into anybody else's perception of what their reality is. I love spending time with myself. I can paint, or I can play with my crystal bowls, or I can do yoga, or, whatever my heart truly desires, whatever makes me feel happy and is uplifting. And before, I was always too scared to do that. But now that we're in the safety zone,
right.
we can, allow ourselves to tap into that inner child, be creative, be authentically you, and, whatever that may be, and just do your best, show up and be present.
Lovely. Well, if somebody did want to reach out to you, find you, how could they find you? Do you have social media?
Yes. So I do have Facebook. On Facebook, I do have a couple different accounts. So there is Becky Samson, and there is also Into the Mist Hypnosis. So, but I'm also on Instagram and TikTok. I do, emails. I have Into the Mist Hypnosis at gmail.com, and also on Outlook. So yeah, I am actually rebranding right now. And so my website is down, but it will be up soon, and people will get to see the little new versions of me.
Um, and your TikTok and your Instagram, what are those handles?
Those are Into the Mist Hypnosis and also under Rebecca Samson.
Okay, perfect. So super easy.
Yes.
All right. Well, I did want to say thank you. This was really just an incredible interview. I really enjoy being in your presence and hearing more about what you're doing and just what you think.
Well,
So
thank
just wanted
you.
to say thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Yes, thank you.